Thank you, Mauricio, for that message. You know, there's a lot of we often feel shame about things that we've done in our past, and the whole idea of shame being temporary is wonderful. God wants to draw near to us, and it's interesting that you compared it with the pagan religions, where only certain castes of people, classes, were allowed to approach their gods. Not everyone was. I have a question for you that I'm not clear about. Actually, there's a lot of things I'm not clear about when it comes to the korbanot. But what's the difference between the korban, and zebach?
Okay, the korban is the action to come close to God. And in the korban includes a sebachim, which
Okay,
is when you kill the animal, okay,
okay,
or you offer. So, but sebach is more to kill the animal, is the act of sacrificing, okay.
okay. The zebach is the act. The korban, like it's the same korban, is the same root as karev, to draw near.
Yeah.
And and I saw there were were they only four different types of offerings in this portion? Olah, Shelamim, Chata, Asham. I couldn't find a fifth. I think there were five, no?
Taola,
Olah, the burnt offering, the Shalamim,
Shalamim is the peace
right?
for
Chata'a,
all people. Kata is for the sin,
right? Asham,
is for guilt.
right? And what's the fifth? Is there a fifth?
Yeah, Mincha,
The mincha. Oh, the meal offering,
yeah, the meal
right?
offering.
But the meal offering was really for any of the to replace any of those other offerings. If they didn't have like the bull or a goat or a sheep, they brought a mincha.
No, the bull were for, okay, there were some economic status.
Right,
Okay.
right,
For a rich people, they could not offer, for example, a mincha because they have a lot of money. So
right,
they needed to kill a bull. Okay.
right,
That's example the case of prince. Okay. The prince offer a bull.
right,
Okay. Or the high priest offer a bull because their status in the society were higher.
right.
So
Did the whole community also bring a bull?
yeah, yeah, the whole community also,
Okay,
but was because the bull was more expensive, for example, than a dove.
right,
So if you are rich people come before God with a dove, that is something bad
right.
because you are
Cheap,
you have money. You have okay. So you are before God offering something that doesn't really cost you nothing.
right,
That's why David says, "I will not sacrifice God, okay, anything that do not cost me." Okay,
right,
it needs to cost him something.
right.
That's why when they transport the ark between Philistines' place to Jerusalem, they were killing every eight, I think every 11 steps they kill an animal, a bull.
Oh,
So can you imagine how much money that that was for that moment?
right.
Probably today, you know, here in El Salvador, okay, you can buy a bull in $30,000.
Wow.
So to put you in context, so in a dove, how much that is cost? Probably $2, $1, I know.
Right,
But the point is that this guy, our God, is not interested that you offer a bull. You are not more because I offer a bull or I offer a dove.
it's the
For him,
kavanah. It's the
is the
intention.
kavanah, is the intention that you
Right.
want to be close to him.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Um,
That's also so different from the pagan sacrifices where your status, everything was external. You know, the more the richer you were and the more you offered, it had to do with, didn't have to do with the intention of your heart. It had to do with the external. I also liked what you said about fear. Like fear and the relationship with God are mutually exclusive. Like God doesn't want fear, us to be afraid. And again, in the pagan sacrifices, it was to appease an angry God, and they had fear. And when you think of it, every broken relationship, like even in a human context, like the basis of so many mental illnesses on one hand is fear, and the fear itself is based on, for example, a broken, horrible relationship with your parents, or your mother or your father, and fear itself. A child who is treated with love but also limits is not afraid of the mother or father, in the sense of, it's not the same as a fear where you hide and you're terrified. It's just you grow up knowing that you're loved, but that you have limitations. But then when, for example, if you're beaten or whatever, or maybe not so dramatic, but when you have a bad relationship or a fearful relationship with your mother or father, with a friend, whoever, that's a sign of brokenness. It's not meant to be in, from the simplest relationship to the most complex. Even as you were saying about a dog, Caleb, you know, one thing about the dog that I've been reading, I told you, Peggy, the other day, they're not the number one smartest animal, but in the one way that they are the smartest is that emotionally, dogs have a very high emotional intelligence. And they even, oxytocin is the love hormone, that when dogs produce more oxytocin even than humans. And God created them. When you think of it, it's almost like their purpose is to love. Like you were saying, they don't want to leave their loved ones. And I was reading something else, that when people have to put, and they're very sad, they have to put their animal down because they're sick and they take it to the vet. A lot of people say, I can't bear going in to see my dog put to death. But veterinarians now are saying that that's one of the worst things you can do, because what they're saying, it's so heartbreaking, but what they're noticing is that when they have to put the animal down, the animal, its last act is to search for its people who took care of it, and they're crying, and aside from the pain, they want the person to be with them. So they're saying that you should, even if you're a little afraid, it's not about you. Go in and be with the dog when its last breath. And anyway, just because it makes me, a dog is a perfect example of a creature that they're even more motivated by love than by food. They've done experiments where they have food or the presence of a loved person, and they won't go to the food, they'll go to the person.
Mm.
So contrary to what most people think, they're motivated by love more than food. I think I'm motivated by food more than love. No, that's a joke. Chocolate, but a dog is
This goes
just
to
a
show
good
you're not a
example.
dog.
What's this?
Goes to show you're not a dog.
No, I am a dog in a lot of ways. But anyway, I loved what you said about that and about fear, because fear is not a healthy sign of a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, this week something happened. Um, and it's a case that I didn't believe that was really true because I could
Sorry,
not
what did you say? I
conceive.
didn't understand.
There is a case that my wife commented me because a friend of her called her today, not today, but like probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and he said, Evelyn, what do you think about this? This is one of my best friends, relationship. We are, I was with him and he is getting out from the psychologist session right now. The point is that the man was so guilty, okay, because he failed to her wife, okay. He had, I don't know what kind of infidelity he made. Okay, I'm not sure if he had a relation or he only have, you know, a relation, a relation or whatever, or probably just, trying to get someone. But the point is that he confessed to her wife what he did. Okay, and he said, "I repented, so I will." He bought, I don't know how to say that in English because I can't remember right now in Spanish how to say that. Uh, but he bought, it's like a tool that was around his sexual organ and had like a lock, okay, like in medieval times.
Yeah.
It is something that I couldn't put, and I said, what? Is
In
that
in
really?
in English, it's called for women. They used to put on a chastity belt. It was called.
Oh, chastity belt.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is for me what's repugnant, honestly.
Yeah.
And I said to her, oh, how it could be? Okay, in something that is happening in Salvador and is from a person who knows that person, and these people is not, I don't know, poor educated. Okay, so the guilt made him to buy that. And also the wife was not good healthy because mental healthy because she accepted the disgust in the key. Okay.
Wow.
So he goes to the job with that thing, okay, and only at home probably she had that, and if he wants to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
how he could go. Okay. So for me, uh then I start to think about guilt and shame. Okay, that's why I wrote this
Yes.
because the Torah told us about the two things. Okay, yes, sometimes we are ashamed about what we do, and that is something that is regarding to the conscience that God put inside of us. That is why we are morals. Okay, when we made something immoral, then we feel shame. Oh, I made this mistake, God, forgive me. Okay. And that is something good. But also the Torah tells us about guilt, okay, which is something deeper, okay, because it's not only that I feel bad because I did this, I feel, my cheeks are red because they mentioned I made a mistake, and but the guilt is worse because the guilt stopped you completely, made you think in things like this man, that they believe that, oh, I will clean up my guilt by making suffering my body. Okay. And that is some of the monkeys in the medieval age they used to do. They have a belt and they start to punish themselves, for example. Okay. Why? Because of the guilt. And sometimes the guilt doesn't, there were not really reason to be guilt. And in this portion also talks about this. They are not really sure if they made a mistake or they do not mistakes. Okay. Because sometimes for example, I can drive, and then I turn to my left, and I didn't know exactly if I was able to do it or not. So I start to consume me myself. Oh, should I deal that? Okay, should I do that? Uh, and it start to in your mind to make you blow and start to think, oh, I feel bad because probably I shouldn't do that. I should, and then made you stop and made you think that you say, oh, I'm gonna punish myself in order just to prevent, okay, just to prevent and to feel me, and that is selfishness. And also I said to Evelyn, you know, I cannot imagine that probably the psychologist needs to go to this another psychology because uh, that is something uh, wrong. According to what I believe, God is not that kind of God that wants you to, if you feel guilt, then present before God, confess your sin, and then make a new fruits of repentance. Okay, in order to reestablish the, 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 the relationship. If his wife wants to pardon him, she doesn't need really this kind of punishment. She only needs to say, okay, I'm gonna cover this and finish. And if she doesn't want to do that, then she can divorce. Okay. But to treat yourself in that way is not how God really wants you to live your life. Okay, so uh, in that's why the problem of the guilt, most part of the time, the guilt doesn't have any base. It's a liar. It is something that is made up. Okay, that they, for example, I remember when I was here. Okay, uh, I am left-handed. Okay, and I remember that there was a professor. She was a nun. Okay, you know what is a nun? It is from Catholic. Okay, and she said, you know, to be left-handed is from devil. You need to make you. I'm gonna make you right-handed. Okay, and because you are of the devil, you are not a good boy. So start to write with the right hand. So right now I write with my right hand, and I can also write with my left hand. But I with this I write very slow, but you can understand what I write. With this I write very fast, but nobody can understand what I wrote. Okay, so uh, but by the guilt,
You
she
write like
made
a
me,
doctor.
yeah, she made me be a right-handed uh, to write. Okay, so the main point here is that was an error from me. No, because God made me left-handed.
Right.
Okay, that is not a mistake. It's not something moral. It's not something bad. I will say. Okay, to be left-handed is one percentage of the population of the world that is left-handed. That's it. Okay, God made you to think like that because your right brain is working. But by the guilt, I changed my grinding to the right. Okay,
Mhm.
and I was a kid. I mean, I had like 5 or 6 year old, more or less. My parents didn't notice about that. Okay, but uh, but the point is, that's what I'm telling you. Sometimes guilt, you are not really, you don't have any conscience about if what you do was right or was wrong. It's not the very same thing that happened with people who has shame. when they are ashamed because they are conscious they did something wrong. Okay. Sometimes to do not stop your shame can convert into a guilt. Okay. And that is the point. Every day you are, showing that idea in your mind, and then you start to make things like, oh, I'm gonna punish myself. Oh, I will not. For example, people when it's in a diet, okay, if I have seen people that they ate, I don't know, probably one piece of money or any seed, okay, nothing wrong, okay, just a little bit or two or three seeds. But for that, I'm not gonna dinner, okay. So they are punishing because of their guilt, okay. So that is something that God in this portion said, okay, I am the God of those persons who has shame and those who feel guilty, because guilty is a feeling, it's not a fact.
But isn't
So
also
Sorry, I
shame,
thought, okay.
isn't shame also a feeling?
I thought it was the opposite
yeah,
too.
yeah,
That,
that's
that
also, yeah, that but it's a feeling because of it's like reaction. It's a natural reaction. Oh, for example, I made mistakes. I broke one egg that somebody wants to eat. That is a mistake. Oh, oops, and you feel shame. There are another kind of shame. For example, you drank too much and probably you were the center of the party because you were very drunk. That is another kind of to be shamed. The next day you are conscious. But with guilty, that feeling is something that is like constantly abandoning yourself, destroying yourself, that you need to 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 have to take justice, okay, in the person's mind to have um, justice, they need to apply a punishment, whatever.
I sort
When
of
you are
understood
ashamed,
it to be
uh,
the
yeah,
opposite. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, Miriam, because to tell you the truth, I'm just a little confused
Because
right now.
maybe it's just language or whatever, but I understood that, for example, kids can grow up with tons of shame. That's because either they, for example, kids who have been touched inappropriately, for example, sorry, excuse me, and
don't worry.
they can grow up with tons of shame, even to the point where it ruins their life until they deal with it. Whereas I thought guilt is more, I mean, you've done something wrong and you feel guilty and you want to repair it. And you go and you repair it. If you did something wrong, whether intentionally or unintentionally, you repair it. But shame is not, shame could linger for 20 years, 30 years, and until the person, it's not necessarily something they've been done themselves. For example, in English, you could say, a person shamed me. That person shamed me. So the result of that is, like, for example, if you're vulnerable and you're young and you're called ugly all your life, you've been shamed by a parent, let's say, who's called you ugly, or a friend, and you become psychologically damaged until you get to repair that, or God helps you heal. But guilt is more concrete. You've done something wrong, and either you recognize it or you don't. That's the way I understand it. So maybe, Peggy, do you understand what I'm saying? Or
Yes, I do, but I'm trying to find the nuances to be able to, because I know that shame could be very devastating to the emotional life of a person. You can live your whole life with something that happened when you were young, and it could cause you later in life to have really some problems, either to get ahead in life or to feel good about yourself, because there's this always a sense of shame, and I know it because I've lived it with a tremendous sense of shame, and it ends up making you sick later on. So you have to deal with that. Guilt guilt there's two things you could do about it. You basically you have to look at the thing that you're guilty of and let it go, give it to God. But shame seems to be deeper than guilt.
I think in
Not
English,
really.
yeah,
No?
I think might be a
No,
language thing.
yeah, probably. But for example, for me, shame is something that doesn't deserve to be punished.
Right.
Guilt uh, is something that people must think I deserve a punishment.
Well, shame we punish ourselves.
The shame, not really, you are not punishing yourself. Probably you have, you know, when you have these two components, shame and guilt, then it's worse
Yes.
because sometimes shame becomes into a guilt to
Yes.
yourself. For example, um, let's say, okay, I I dress very bad for a dinner. We You need to go with a dress and you went with shorts. Okay, when you go with the shorts and then you can see everybody very
All
well
dressed up.
dressed. Yeah, you feel shame.
Right.
Okay, that is the first impression. That is in your body. You start to feel, for example, your heart is pumping more or less, and then you start to breathe like anxiety, and then your cheeks becomes red, and you say, "Oh no, please, swallow me air." Okay, and that is shame. Okay, but the point is, okay, what I do with the shame. Okay, uh, well, you need to deal with that. I made a mistake.
You go
I
home and
did
change.
But to
go
me,
home
that's
and change.
Yeah.
embarrassment,
Okay.
not shame.
Yeah, but
It's a
yeah, that is
yeah, but
embarrassment.
because
But
it's not
the
a sin, you
embarrassment,
made a mistake.
yeah, you make a mistake and that's it. But the problem is when the people have uh, that kind of guilty. Oh, I'm not only ashamed of what I dress. Okay, I feel guilty because I decided to wear this dress. Okay, these shorts and whatever. So I decide from now that I will not go to any other party, for example, or to any other activity that needs to be with person. So your shame becomes into guilt, and then you decided to punish yourself, okay, without probably noticing. Yes, there is some embarrassment there because you feel very bad. No, oh, I made up everything bad. But the point is, the guilt, the problem is worse than shame because when you feel guilty constantly because you are ashamed of anything, you start to punish yourself. For example, to deny to go to familiar meetings, to deny to go to the park. I will, for example, I can tell you, for example, this man that I told you. Can you imagine if he wants to go, for example, to a beach? If he has this problem, he probably will punish himself and say, "Oh, I'm not gonna go to a beach because then I'm gonna have a problem." That is why. the Islamic person sometimes believes. Okay, so it's not about that. It's not about uh, to, to punish yourself, because when you punish yourself, even for example, to say, I will not enjoy this moment, for example, I will not, eh, not only harms yourself, you harm people around you. Okay,
So,
so so that's why, okay, can you imagine the in this portion of the Torah doesn't say when you feel embarrassment, then you will sacrifice this. No, talks about two things: guilt and shame.
so which
Okay,
do we bring, the chata or the hasham?
the shame is for guilt.
The hasham is for guilt, and for
Yeah,
shame is the chata.
yeah.
So, and okay, but we
When you
don't.
make mistakes, okay,
So we,
when you make mistakes, then it's kata, because that is mistake. Okay, I feel bad, I feel embarrassment, I feel, you know, I don't deserve this, but that's it. But
but
the
it's
problem,
a conscious mistake. We do it on
yeah, is a
purpose.
conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do it with conscience or without noticing, doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Okay.
But the problem is guilt really is not about you made a mistake. Okay, guilt is the sense in yourself that you need to punish yourself. Okay,
Right.
now yourself
Self-flagellation.
self yeah, but not only with physical, probably sometimes, oh, I will not go to the cinema, I will not make a sport, for example,
Yeah.
as many religious people said. Okay, oh, I will not dance, for example. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Many
Everybody
things.
knows
Yeah.
there are so many.
A self-imposed punishment that God isn't
Yeah,
asking for. But
yeah,
we don't have these animals anymore. We haven't had them for years. The community, the Orthodox community, want to bring back the sacrificial system. But in between then and now, so we just basically have the right just to go to God. We don't have a Mishkan, we don't have a temple, but we can go directly to Him, right? And acknowledge what we've done, give it to Him, and allow and accept the forgiveness.
yeah.
That's the
That's,
process.
can you imagine, for example, it came to my mind right now, Adam and Eve, okay. At the moment God called them, they knew what they did. They were very, you know, aware that they ate, okay, the fruit. The apple, no, the fruit. We don't know exactly. That is a medieval idea that they ate an apple, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Probably if they were in America, in Latin America, they will eat a mango. Okay.
Yeah.
But um, but the point is they were ashamed.
Right.
Okay. They said, Adam and Eve, and they what was the first uh, because of the shame. For the guilty, they punish themselves. What was the punish? Oh, I'm gonna run away from God's presence. Okay.
Right.
They have the two components there. Okay. And then God called them, and when they approached to God, what they said, they confessed something. Oh, we were ashamed because we were naked.
How did you know you were naked?
Yeah, how do you know that you were naked?
Yeah.
Okay. So they present before God, they do not offer any animal.
They covered themselves with a fig leaf,
Yeah. And God made them the dressing.
the animal
Okay.
skins.
Animal skins.
Do
Okay.
you think, do you, one of the things that I was thinking of, remember when Moses went up on Mount Sinai? He came down and his face was shining. You know,
Yeah.
you would think that they would say, wow, look, his face is shining. We want our face to shine too. But instead they went, no, no, cover yourself with a veil. We don't want to see you. Do you think that because the light is so reflective of what we do wrong that maybe the light that reflected what Adam and Eve did wrong, they needed to cover themselves in the same way that the people asked Moses, to fail yourself. They didn't want, it's like the light, God's light, didn't allow them to see their own, well, they were innocent until they could see. No longer were they
Yeah,
innocent.
the point is, for me, that is a theory for me. Okay, I want to be clear about it. Um, God created the universe and the all the world, the physical world, in but the physical world was one with the spiritual world. There were not separation between them. Okay, so you can see the spiritual world at the very same uh, um, eyes that with your physical eyes. Okay, so they didn't notice they were um, naked. Okay, because they were covered by God's presence, by God's light.
Right,
So they don't see a body naked. They see God's creation before them. They probably he didn't notice, oh, God opened my my part here and get
my left side.
yeah, my left side, for example. Uh, but uh, at that moment, what God did, God covered them. So since the beginning was the very same idea, Kapara.
Right.
So he covered them and he didn't punish them.
No.
Okay.
Well, they kicked them
He
out of the
just
garden. That was a punishment enough.
yeah, but a God could destroy them.
Yeah, he could have destroyed them.
Better,
Yeah.
he could destroy them and make a new creation.
Right. But he knows us.
Nobody knows that God would do that today.
Yeah.
Okay. But he decided to keep them alive. Okay. Yes. Now you are corrupted. You We need to separate the two worlds.
Mm,
And he made a separation of the two worlds, a
mm.
spiritual world and
Physical.
physical world. When when God present himself in Mount Sinai, okay, again the spiritual world and the physical world became one again.
Right.
And Moses was the only one who can enter into this joint point of that is wow, amazing, because at that place the time did not exist.
Right.
For example, there's no explanation. How can you live without drinking water 3 days?
No, you can't.
In the Bible says uh, he didn't eat and drink anything during 40 days.
Yeah. Did the same
You
thing
can
happen with
survive.
did the
Yeah.
same thing happen with Yeshua? Was it also 40 days and 40 nights or no? It was only Moshe that this happened to, right?
Honestly, I say that with Yeshua, uh, remember the idea of Moses redivivus. Okay, they wanted to prove that Yeshua, because the Torah says at the end, one prophet will come in the future, and he lead you to the Torah. And I can remember right now that the very specific points at the Barim, but he prophesied something like that. Okay, so uh, they want to fit Yeshua into these
Right.
writings, yeah,
Right.
because we need to prove that Moses was referring to Yeshua.
Yeah. But it could have been referring to Joshua.
Yeah, it could be referring to Joshua. I don't
Yeah.
know. Uh, so when a writer takes 70 years, probably was not Matthew who wrote this book,
Right.
was the Talmidim of Matthew who wrote what Matthew said.
Right.
Okay, so they interpretate something probably, and we don't know exactly if in Isaiah they added something. Okay,
Right. Right.
so that's it's yeah, are messianic writings, but I read them and I said, okay, this is good for me. This is a great song, so I don't want to discuss.
Right.
But in this case, I'm not sure if Yeshua was 40 days because he was not okay. Moses was not. They were at the desert, but
Mm.
Moses was not at the desert. Moses was with God in Mount Sinai.
Right. Right. Exactly. And he had a
And
very special.
Yeshua,
Yeah.
yeah, and Yeshua said when he went to the desert, okay, but doesn't say, oh, he went to the mountain with
With
God,
God. No, exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
and also what Moses when he went up to the Mount Sinai, around 6 million people were witness.
Right. Right.
Yeshua, they only knew that Yeshua went 40 days out,
Yeah.
returned back after 40 days.
Yeah.
But who were the witnesses?
Right.
So, so that is why I put in doubt that
Right.
uh, I'm not saying because I remember when I was kid, um, I had sometimes that I started to because I used to play the guitar when I was kid, and I remember that I started to have like a meditation time with God. Okay, I was Christian, and but I remember I started to read the Psalms, the Elim, and then I start to put music to those writing, and then I don't know, it was like a drug, I would say.
Like what happened with
So
with David when he was out with his harp.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
and I started to cry and make prayings, but like I said right now in this portion, oh, they will shout to the Lord and they will sing praises. Okay, and then I start to sing praises. And I remember probably took 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours
Wow.
of praying. I was with my closed eyes and I was like, I really felt the presence of God, honestly. I felt His love. I felt the shalom. Okay. I didn't notice that probably I was not really aware what happening at that moment.
Wow.
But I just let the presence of God was flowing. Okay. So when when I remember that sometimes I had a mirror before me because at the room of my fathers they have a mirror, and and I saw myself, and I look like with light shining my face. Okay, after being like, to have this kind of time with God. Sometimes I used to have this. I wake up very early in the morning. I wake up right now sometimes at 3:45. Okay, and I am alone, completely alone. And this week came to me this song that I put in this portion. And I just start to cry out. I was alone. I was preparing the food for the meals for the kids in the school, and just start to cry out, and I couldn't stop that. I just felt the presence of God, like I just felt when I was killed. Okay, and I felt a lot of shalom, because for me to cry is not easy. Okay, and I feel like, a burden, heavy loaded, was on my shoulder, and then I just felt that all the stress, okay, run away. And I thank God, and I said, "Oh God, thank you for your presence, because I know you are with me." And that's that I wrote this because um, it's so important that in, nobody, not doesn't matter in what time. There is not a good time to look and to search God. All the time is good to search God. Okay, it doesn't matter if you are guilty of something, you are ashamed, you are embarrassed, you are you made a mistake, you don't have a mistake, you are angry, you are joyful, you are, no matter how you are. But when you are close to God, then start to feel the shalom. And when you start to feel the shalom, your state is peace. And when your state is peace, you can bring love to everybody.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly. It
You can
spreads.
bring, you can spread, for example, peace to other persons. You can shake hands. You can have a smile in your face.
Right.
And then,
That's our Shalamim offerings.
yeah, and that is how it works. So it doesn't matter right now. Okay, we don't have animals, and I don't believe that God really wanted animals.
No.
Is
Oh,
the way,
yeah, on
yeah.
that. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you something. If we look at the nature of these animals, the bull, the cow, the sheep, the goats, even the birds that were chosen, you talked about the nature of the dog, the characteristics, kelev, coming from love. I know it's just a theory because I keep thinking of these type of animals, but they were herbivores. They didn't eat any meat. They were animals of peace, of love. There were animals that could be um, the animals of service. Um, I know it's a hoax as to why it wasn't that they're better for eating than other kinds of animals, although they're considered kosher. Would you say that there was something about the characteristics of these animals that made them acceptable to God so that we can draw near to Him?
Well, the first thing is that the animals should be uh, without any defect,
Yes, with no defect, right?
with
No
no defect.
blemish. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the very first thing,
right.
because you cannot come to before God with an animal uh, who is not to honor God.
Right.
You are presented before the King of Kings, and you present with a dog without an eye, for
Yeah.
example.
No, exactly. But that's
That
something
is,
other because
yeah,
you could have a herd of camels and you could have a perfect camel, but the camels weren't acceptable to God for offerings.
yeah. But well, that is one. The second one is because some of these animals were gods
Were what?
to Israel, were gods
Oh,
to
gods to
Israel.
Egypt. Right. Right.
Yeah. and they were slaves. And during 80 years, they said, "Oh, here is your animal,
Here's
okay,
your
and this
God.
is God."
Right, the
And now
golden
you are,
calf.
yeah, and now you are killing your God.
Right,
So you are proving that is not a God itself, and you are presented your God to kill your God before the King and the God of gods.
right.
So that is to break your brain, okay, to open your mind, okay,
Break your paradigm.
break your paradigm. Because right now you need to that the slavery get out from you,
Right,
okay.
right.
So right now you are bringing your sheep, and this sheep for no, for, I can tell you right now, this is a secret from us, okay. But I remember I had an scapulary, okay, when I started to come to the congregation, okay, and I had this scapulary in my car. You know what is an scapulary?
No,
That is okay for Catholic Church. You have a necklace with like little balls.
Rosaries,
the
no?
That
rosary beads, the rosary
Rosaries?
beads.
rosary, yeah,
Yeah,
the rosary. And you start to say Padre nuestro que está en los cielos, and then you move to another one. Okay,
right,
and, but you know that thing is more like when you look to Dracula and you need to have the cross to protect you.
right. Or
Okay,
the garlic.
yeah, or the garlic. Okay, that is okay. So it doesn't have anything, and it didn't mean nothing to me. But I had in my car because I felt like protection of God. Okay, it's like to have my mezuzah. Okay, then. Okay, I need to have the mezuzah to put in my house. And I
Right.
remember that in one moment, in one day, my mezuzah fell down.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, it was like in nobody touch. So it was like, oh no,
bad
sorry,
luck is coming.
my luck is coming. Okay. But you know, I took that, I remember, and I said, okay, I don't need this.
Right.
God is protecting me.
Yeah.
So I took that and send it to the garbage. Okay.
You threw out your mezuzah in the
Yeah.
garbage?
No, my mezuzah, no.
Oh,
My
okay.
my my rosy, how
Your
do you say that?
rosary. Yeah,
My
okay.
rosary. Okay. And then I threw it because I said it doesn't have any power. It doesn't have
Right.
nothing.
Right.
And I
Superstition.
was, yeah, and I was 38 years old probably, can you imagine a man of 30 years old thinking that a rosary protects me
Yeah.
with education and whatever you want?
Mm,
But so can you imagine then? Oh, this sheep is protecting me, is God to me.
yeah. It's interesting because
So
when you mentioned the shame, the slavery, God was taking us away from slavery to the gods, these gods that were now in the shape of these animals. We are also, um, He wants to remove us from the slavery of our shame, the slavery of our guilt, all these things that lie within us that stop us from becoming the person He wants us to be, to serve Him in
yeah,
this world,
yeah, to make you free.
to free
That
us. Yes.
and then also another thing is that yes, one is for that. The other one is to present God something good. Third is to present that you don't have to come before God with your empty hands.
Right. Right.
That's another principle to give, and that is part of our lives. For example, if you go to a home,
Right.
what do you bring? Do you wait that everybody, oh, you are my special guest. Please sit and serve you, or you go to a place and you know not to be served but to serve. Okay, and people say, oh, they say don't bring nothing. Okay, and
Yeah.
that's okay because there are some person. But when you go to that place, for example, you can bring something else, not probably something that is money, okay, or cost you some money. For example,
Right.
you can bring, uh, oh, how beautiful home you have. Thank you for receiving me. You are a very good person, and I'm honoring to be your friend, for example. You are giving something. So don't go to a places empty hands.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't go into your fridge and see what the leftovers were from 4 days ago and offer that. You go and you
Yeah.
buy something new. You buy flowers or wine or something that has quality.
Yeah. And the other thing is to to give you the idea that you can approach to God with whatever reason you may have in your hand. Okay. But the point is, okay, you don't want to be with me at Mount Sinai, then I will give you the opportunity. And also, God is protecting people from shame because the same procedure, people didn't know exactly if they were offering, for example, a guilt or a shame uh, offering, or for example, to offer a Thanksgiving offering. Okay, so that is to protect God, and only the person who were there exactly knew why he was he were they were there. Okay, so that's another part. So
Perfect. Beautiful.
I'm just curious to,
Yes.
um, Mauricio, when you say you were left-handed, because I'm left-handed too, and I can't imagine writing with my right hand, but did you on your own, just because of shame, you switched yourself? Or
No,
the
what he
teacher?
said, it was exactly the same with my mother. It was considered a sin in those
No,
days.
no, that I
Yeah,
understand,
they took
but the teacher
the
said
teacher forced him.
you're forced to switch
yeah,
Yeah,
hands.
my mother too. She was forced. She was not allowed.
she had a ruler of 1 meter.
And she would
Okay,
hit your hand.
and hit my hand.
Wow, wow.
Terrible, eh?
So
Yeah,
and that was acceptable at that moment.
yeah.
Okay, I'm 83, 1983, so it was not so long time
Well,
Right.
here,
ago.
here, when my mother was in school, it was in the 30s, and they went to a Protestant school, which came from the Catholics, and
Yeah,
they did the same thing. They forced her to
Thank
write
God they,
with
I,
her
I
right
can't
hand.
imagine that.
Well, she was then became ambidextrous.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
true.
Yeah, but it's I don't think it's good for the brain.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Sometimes if
Probably they
you're
open your,
exercising both sides
yeah.
of your brain, and
Yeah.
it might even be better. It's not a good thing to make, but with other things, there are exercises where you could where you could
Yeah, yeah.
train to.
My mother used to tell me that all the time. Don't do things, if you want to maintain your agility of your mind, don't do things always exactly the same way. She said, even brushing your teeth sometimes, just brush it with the other hand. Do something different. When
Interesting.
you're if you're driving, go a different way. Challenge yourself. She would always tell me that. And I do, which is great.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Also, I remember, weren't all the sacrifices or the
Korbanot.
korbanot, they were all for unintentional sin, no? Because you had mentioned that sometime it was like, because Christians will sometimes base their idea of the sacrifice of what they call Jesus Christ on the old sacrificial system, but there was no sacrifice for intentional sin. And so Jesus, when they say he forgives your sin, those are intentional sins. And that's one reason that you can't call him the Lamb of God. He isn't the Lamb of God. But I mean, because
It
remember
was
we
almost like an
talked,
intentional mistake. I don't know if it was it intentionally. It wasn't it with a rebellious heart, right, Mauricio?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you honestly what I think about it. David was forgiven by God,
Yes. And he murdered
uh,
someone.
and he planned that.
And he planned it, and he committed
Yes,
had her
it's a
commit
good.
no,
adultery.
but that's not the
And,
point I was making. God
yeah,
that is the point. Well, God forgives us for many things, everything. But the point that you can make, this was something, things that we did intentionally. The idea was that we go and repair it. You
Doesn't
know,
it say the Asham is for intentional sin?
yeah. No, yeah, the sham probably could be for an intentional sin because you feel guilty about what you did. Okay. But the point is not, okay, I wouldn't like to put the context. Can you imagine that when we read in Shemot 25, I guess, it says that God is a God that forgive 1,000 generation, and then you start to say, He forgive us from Fatah, which is make mistakes, Avodah, which is something worse, and I can't remember the other word, but but that gives you the idea that you made something intentionally, premeditated, but then you get repent. That's his intention. Okay, you say, "Oh God, I, we are humans, and He created us as humans, and humans tend to do things like that." Okay, I cannot say, for example, uh, I don't have to eat chocolate. Okay, and then I go, and I know that the doctor told me not to eat chocolate. Okay, but I go intentionally to that place, to that aisle in the supermarket that they show chocolates.
I'm just gonna look.
Yeah, and then you go with your card and you start to say, "Oh, um, I thought I didn't know exactly that in this aisle where they have chocolates." Okay,
It just jumped into my cart.
right?
yeah, and then I just couldn't resist, and if I gonna make a mistake, then I gonna make it bigger. Okay, like you know, so I put three. Okay, so in this funny example, then people also can do worse things like I shouldn't drink, and then a beer cross my day, or a cigarette. I don't know. You, the point is, yes, most of the mistakes we do daily is with intention. Okay, when you lie, for example, you are conscious you are lying. Okay, don't tell me that you'll know exactly that you are not lying.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yes, we do mistake with intention, but the point is, um, what do we do when we know, yes, there are consequences, not punishment, consequences of your intention,
Right.
okay, of your mistake. But the point is, God can forgive, and also all this sacrifice system also can forgive everybody. For example, it says to the to the high priest, he said, "Oh." God, we intentionally made this mistake. We have killed people. We made this. And then you start to notice that yeah, God is covering everything. Okay. That is something really wow from our God. It's so good. To know that there is nothing created, even the worst sin that God cannot forgive. Okay. Then you will have consequences, yes. Okay. For example, right now we are discovering that they said Hitler went to Argentina after the war, and the skeleton they find out was belonged to a woman. They, the skeleton is in Russia, so he didn't die. But the point is, he had consequences. Yes, can you imagine to be hidden all your life, looking your back because someone can chase you all the time, and he died alone. They said they went to Paraguay. I'm not sure if that is true also, but they opened the Argentinian books and the U.S. books, and both of them say the same. So who knows?
Mm,
But I can tell you that is not lie. He had consequences.
right,
Honestly, I
right,
cannot imagine how was his mind. You know,
right.
so uh, so that is the point we can approach to God when He draw near to us, for sure.
Yes, yes, that's wonderful. So for the next 2 weeks, you're on vacation, Mauricio? You're going to be away?
Next week, yes, probably the next I can be with you
The
again.
following, okay. You're going
Yeah,
away for Pesach.
yeah, I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna be at the beach.
Oh, you poor thing. I feel
Yeah,
so sorry for you.
yeah, I
I
know.
will pray for you that you don't suffer too
Yeah,
much.
that the sun is not very harm.
Exactly.
Okay, from 12 to 16 or to 17. I'm not sure. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So you have a wonderful time. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. I love how the Torah comes alive for us and is so real for us today. And may our light, his light, shine through us in all that we do and everywhere we go. And may he heal us from the things that keep us in sin, in shame and in guilt, so that we could be healthy both physically and emotionally and mentally. And you have a wonderful time. And Mauricio, don't worry, we won't be crying too much here. So I wish you all the rest of the day Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
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 Bye.